Hi class, today we are on lesson 62 of Saxon Math Book 3, and today we're going to talk about the first part of the area lesson. So, a couple days ago, last week, we talked about perimeter, and you guys went outside and walked the perimeter of your yard. So if you remember, I compared perimeter to a fence. The distance around a shape is the perimeter. So if I were to hold up my whiteboard here and say, what's the perimeter? We would measure this side, this side, this side, and this side, and we would add all those lengths together. So area is all the space inside the perimeter. So while this is my perimeter, this is my area. Okay, so we've got perimeter around the outside, area in the inside. So if the perimeter is your fence, the area is your whole entire yard, all the space inside of the fence. So we measure perimeter with length, with inches, with centimeters, with yards. If it's really huge, maybe with miles. We can't measure area like that because we have this length. This length is just a straight line. Imagine if we would try to put straight lines in here to measure out. It would take thousands of straight lines just to measure this small whiteboard. So something bigger would be a real headache. So instead of measuring just with inches as a line like this, let's say this is 1 inch. This is how we measure distance. This is how we measure perimeter. But if we're talking about area, we measure it in something called a square inch. And let me show you how we write that. Just like this. So this is 1 inch, its length. This is 1 inch across the top, 1 inch down the side, 1 inch across the bottom, and 1 inch up the other side. All the sides of this square are 1 inch. So we call it 1 square inch, and this is how we write it. We write the number 1, the abbreviation for inch, and then this little 2 hangs out at the top. So we have 1 inch squared, or we could call it 1 square inch. And this little unit of measurement is what we use to measure area. Now, it could be a square inch, it could be a square centimeter, it could just be a square unit. Unit is the term that we use when we don't know if it's inches or feet or centimeters or meters or what it is. We just say square unit. Okay? Here's how we use those to measure something. So let's say I have a rectangle and it is 3 units by 4 units. So here's my rectangle. So if I know this is 3 and this is 4, I can draw the square units. I can go across horizontally to create 3 units. If I count them here, if I'm just looking at the perimeter, I would have 1, 2, 3, and then I'll do the same thing along the bottom. Notice if I were just counting the perimeter, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 3 units going this way, 4 units going this way, and then notice how I ended up with a bunch of square units inside my rectangle. Now I can count how many square units are there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we would say the area of this rectangle is 12 units squared. And we would write 12, just a U for units is fine, and then the little 2 to show that it's not length, it's a square unit. And that's how we do that. All right, your book has an activity on page 336. It says on lesson activity 23, trace over grid lines to make the rectangles described below. If you are in my class, I would like for you to do that activity. The lesson activity that it's referring to looks like this. It's just a page with 1-inch grids. You can find this on Teams in files. It'll be under class materials. You can find this page and your student can do the activity that is there, making some squares and coloring in some area of their own. We have one more example before we move on to the lesson practice, and that says a 5-inch by 7-inch photograph has an area of how many square inches? So we are going to draw it out. I'm going to make it fairly big because 5 by 7, so we'll say it's like this. It's 5 inches this way, and it's 7 inches this way. And we have to figure out what the area is. So just like we did with that last one, I'm going to split this into 5 equal pieces. So as equal as I can make them without using a ruler. So about like that. So now if we counted this way, we would have 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches. And then I'm going to do the same thing going up and down, except this time I need 7 inches. So about like that. Oh, and these aren't terribly equal, but you'll get the idea. So I have my 7 inches going across. So now I could count them by ones, 1, 2, 3. But man, that seems like a lot of work. Is there an easier way? Absolutely, I could count by 5s because each column here has 5 square units. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Is that my answer? Can I just be done with 35? No, absolutely not. We need to have our units, which in this case is inches. And let me show you something real quick. If you were here in the classroom, I would say 35 inches, that is this. That would be a straight line that's this long. This, from fingertip to my first finger over here, this is 35 inches. That doesn't look like this at all. So what's wrong with this? It can't just be 35 inches. It has to be 35 square inches. So we need to have that little 2 there, 35 square inches. All right, so looking at our lesson practice, we're just going to do these one at a time, pause in between so that you can figure out the answer on your own before I give it to you so that you're getting some good practice here. The first one says, to measure area, we count. Do we count segments? That's choice A. Squares, choice B. Circles, choice C, or rectangles, choice D. To measure area, what is it that we're counting? If you said B, or if you showed me B in sign language, you would be correct. Squares is what we count. We count square units, square inches, square centimeters to measure area. Problem B. Stan covered the front cover of a journal with 1-inch square stickers. What was the area of the front cover? And then there's a picture there that shows you this. Oh, I didn't do that very well. I don't think I gave myself enough space. Okay, and he's already got it covered with squares. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the squares for you as well. So he covered them with squares. It says they are inches. I didn't fill in inches there. 5 inches and 6 inches. What is the area of this journal that he covered with square stickers? Go ahead and count that now. Pause me if you need a little bit more time before I give the answer. And then I prefer to count by 5s over 6s. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 30. Do you have the label right? 30 square inches is what you need. 30 square inches is how big Stan's journal is. All right, problem C. Sylvia placed a stamp that was 1 square inch in the corner of a 3-inch by 5-inch envelope. Altogether, how many stamps would be needed to cover the whole thing? So it shows this picture, and she has a stamp, a square stamp in the corner of it there. How many stamps would be needed to cover the whole envelope? Put me on pause if you need another minute to figure that one out. Again, I might count by 5s. 5, 10, 15. She would need 15 stamps. This is a word problem, so instead of writing 15 square inches, we want to use the unit they give us, and they tell us that they're stamps. So we have 15 stamps to cover the envelope. Our last lesson practice problem is D. It says, what is the perimeter and area of a 6-inch by 4-inch rectangle? So let me label it for you here. They want you to find the perimeter and the area. Put me on pause, try this on your own, and then come back when you're ready to see the answer. So for perimeter, we know we have to add the 4 sides. So I would have 4 plus 4 plus 6 plus 6. And then I'm going to look at that and go, oh, I can make 10s. So 10, 20. So I would write this as P for perimeter equals 20 inches. Let me hold it this way. Do I need a little 2 there for the perimeter? No, I do not, because my perimeter is measuring length. It's not measuring area. So there's my perimeter, 20 inches. And then next, we're going to look at the area. Is there a way I can figure this out without having to draw the grid? Oh, I know that I could count by 6 4 times, or I could count by 4 6 times, and that sounds an awful lot like a multiplication problem. It is. So if you know what 6 times 4 is, you can figure out the area really quick in your head. I know that 6 times 4 is 24. I know that we're talking about inches, and that because it's area, I have to put the little 2 there to show that it's square inches that I'm talking about. That's the end of this lesson. If you are in my class, your next chore is to do the written practice, which begins on page 337 of your textbook. Don't forget to draw those rectangles with the lesson activity, which is back on page 336. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.